We are back, and we've got a different kind of show for all of you today. Direct mail that works, 7 proven strategies for real estate agents. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a step-by-step process to actually set up an effective direct mail campaign. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask you to ask yourself a few questions to make sure that direct mail is actually the right fit for you to lead generate and also for your market.
Exactly. So, thinking about launching a mail campaign, we know that you are. Tim just talked to you about how we're going to do that, some questions to ask yourself. But don't waste your time on generic, forgettable drip campaigns like recipe cards that go straight to the trash. Instead, send targeted, high-value messages with a clear call to action every single time. When done right, direct mail can still generate high-quality leads and position you as the go-to agent in your market. So we're going to give you 7 direct mail strategies that are delivering real results today.
All right, before Julie gets to that, I want to give you guys some rules to follow or some points for you to go and research on your own. If you're thinking about doing direct mail, why does it sometimes work and why does it sometimes not work? The problem with all marketing is it all works. It all works 100% of the time. You just don't know what 50% of the marketing is actually working. And direct mail is another example of that. So I can give you guys lots of stories and examples where direct mail really worked for coaching clients, and I can give you a lot more where it really didn't. And where it really didn't, there's always these commonalities. Number one, there's too much, it's oversaturated. In other words, there's too many other agents and brokerages and just junk mail in general that's filling up people's mailboxes. But if there's a lot of agents, especially if there's well-established agents that have gotten a lot of dominance in the marketplace from direct mail, you're going to have a hard time breaking into that market. If I remember when Julie and I sold real estate, there was an agent, and she's still in business. She's a fantastic agent. She owns a Remax franchise named Delina Siamaco. And she actually got to the point where she was doing so much direct mail, she opened up her own print shop. And I'm not even exaggerating. Now, her postcards weren't what you'd call super high quality, but she mailed out millions of them per year. And so if you're planning on getting into that particular market where she sold real estate and you thought you're going to be able to get some market share away from her with your postcards, good luck with that. So the number one rule, hold on, is making sure there's not a Delina Siamaco in your market, because usually what you'll find is there's not just going to be one real dominant direct mailing agent. There'll be 2 or 3. So good. Again, it's the probability of being able to get any sort of attention in a market like that, unless you outmail them or you're sending something that's going to really stand above and beyond. Like Julie and I, we'll tell you about some of the things we direct mailed and the things that worked and the things that didn't. But again, test your market first. Find out if it's essentially if there's even going to be any opportunity for you to be noticed. Number 2 is you really want to be examining and knowing what market you're going to be mailing to. Because if you're mailing to a market that doesn't have a lot of movement, if the sellers never sell, really, why are you direct mailing to them? They're never going to sell. You're just wasting your time and you're wasting your money. So those are really the first 2, I think, big things as far as why direct mail doesn't work. And the reason it does work is the exact opposite. So if you're in a marketplace where, frankly, the average sale price is, high enough to justify the expense, and there isn't a real established competitor, let alone competitors, you actually have a really good chance of picking up some fast business from that, provided you mail them something that they're going to want to, that they find useful, and not just something silly. And I'll give you an example. There was Michael and Robin Gordon. Now, this was years ago. This is probably 20, 25 years ago. They sell in the main line in Philadelphia, and they sell really expensive real estate. And their really expensive real estate market had nobody that was direct mailing, at least not doing it consistently. So what they started doing is direct mailing twice a month. And the postcards they direct mailed were gorgeous. Some of the nicest I've ever seen before. Now, they spent a ton of money, but their average commission was really high, so they could justify it. Then what they eventually started doing is the direct mail twice a month. And then they would start mailing out like a newsletter, and Julie's going to talk about that had a market summary. So for the real analytical types out there who are waiting for something that was going to be an insider's view of what was really going on in this very high-end market, Robin was the go-to for that. So the combination of that consistency over a long-ass period of time got her market dominance. Now, there were other agents that started to come in and literally copy your postcards, copy the frequency, and she began to, the market began to become a little oversaturated. She lost a little bit of her edge there. And then she had to, increase frequency, change the design, change the size. But again, we're going to get into all that. So number 1 rule is make sure you know your market. And if you're doing direct mail now and it's not working, it's probably because the market's oversaturated with too many direct mailers, and or the market itself, it has such slow turnover that you're wasting your time and money and energy.
Well, that's right. Like if I think about my parents' neighborhood in 43085, Worthington, Ohio, which, you know, you and I both know every single street like the back of our hands there. I can tell you over the past, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, maybe 10 houses have sold, maybe. And yet they do get postcards in the mail. So that's a neighborhood, for example, that would be a waste of money to try and crack into because nobody ever sells. And if it does sell, it usually goes to a family member or it's a private deal.
But it is ironic, Julie, that the best neighborhoods for direct mail, and you know, similar to all forms of marketing really, are going to be the ones that have a lot of turnover and high sale price.
Yes.
You know, like direct mail in the market where you and I sold in New Albany, Ohio, that made sense.
Well, and so why do those neighborhoods occur? There's different profiles of that, right? So for us, there was a lot of relocation that happened. There was a lot of executive movement. It was a popular golf community, so lesser expensive golf communities, say Muirfield, would move up to New Albany locally. So look for different reasons, but I think the point that you're trying to make is don't just say, hey, you know, I really like that neighborhood. I'm going to market to it. That's great. You can still like it, but it may or may not be a neighborhood that you'll get results from, not necessarily because your postcard is terrible, but because maybe nobody ever moves there, or to your earlier point, maybe somebody has been sending their giant postcard campaign for 20 years and they've already got it locked up. So do your research.
And another little, you know, pro tip here is if you've been doing direct mail into a particular market and it's not working and you've been doing it for a long period of time, don't think doing it for longer is going to make it all of a sudden work. That's just the lie that the marketers will tell you because they want you to keep spending money with them. I'm going to say that again. If you've been doing something for a long period of time with no results, why do you think doing it for longer is going to all of a sudden magically get you results? It's not. You're just wasting your time and you're wasting your money. So if you're doing something that's not working, you know, there's an old saying, right? When the going gets tough, the smart, what? Get going, right? Well, Julie and I re-engineered that because we discovered, you know, in business for the last 25 years, that when the going gets tough, the smart leave. In other words, if you're all of a sudden finding yourself beating your head against the wall, constantly walking against the wind that's trying to push you back, why push through it? Just go to a place where you're not going to have to put as much effort in to get the same results. And that can go with marketing and advertising. That can go with where you're selling real estate. That can go with the state you live in. So when the going gets tough, the smart leave. Don't try to stick it out just because there's some sort of hero's journey that you put yourself on. Think strategically. And remember, you're in this business to help people. That is true. But you're also in this business to make a profit. Julie?
Very well said. So we're going to bring you 7 postcards that have been proven to work. We have coaching clients that have gotten results. And by results, I don't just mean somebody went and liked your picture on Facebook. Results are actual appointments and actual transactions.
Now, there's a lot of notes from today's show, as there always are, and make sure you get our notes. Go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. harrisrealestatedaily.com is the only place where our complete notes live. So make sure you go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and download all of the notes. The newsletter subscription is 100% free. So just all you got to do is go to harrisrealestatedaily.com, drop in your email, and then remember you got to go over to your email and then double click to confirm that you want the subscription. And then you'll start receiving the newsletter for that day, as well as a lot of very specific content that's just for the newsletter subscribers. Oh, and another quick announcement. We are going to start when we're not mobile, and Julie and I travel a lot, especially this time of year. But when we're not mobile, we're going to start doing the podcast every day on video. So a lot of you guys have requested that. And the reason we haven't been able to do it in the past is because we don't have a studio. We still don't have a studio, but I figured out how to make it so that we have real close to studio quality video that we can pull off in our dining room, if you want to know the truth.
Our virtual studio.
Our virtual studio. And then also when we're on the road, we can also do mobile video fairly well too. So we're going to try to upgrade your experience. So if you're watching us on YouTube and you're seeing the loops that our video editor creates, well, I've got good news for you. We're going to be switching over to a more traditional video format, hopefully starting next week as soon as Julie and I allows me to.
Exactly. That's right. Okay, now we're going to go through 7 proven postcards, i.e. direct mail. You'll notice that there is something in common about all of them. There's something of value, in other words, not just a recipe, which might be a great recipe, but is that really going to get you real estate appointments? Probably not. And a call to action. It's not just a public service announcement. Hey, I just sold a house. You see that a lot. It is something of value and a call to action. So number 1 is, I love this one. The Zestimate was wrong. I know y'all love to hate the Zestimate, and we understand that. Here's the headline. Zillow estimated this home at $775,000. We just sold it for $1 million, or whatever the price may be. You guys have lots of examples in your market of that happening. It may or may not be your listing. You can borrow from your brokerage, but the headline still works. Zillow estimated this home to be X. We just sold it for X plus whatever it ended up at.
It is worth mentioning, though, what Zillow has done to combat the bad reputation they had with their Zillow estimates is they just started estimating everything low, which means that you aren't really going to come across too many sellers that are trying to argue for the Zillow estimate price anymore. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. But as far as the Z estimate goes, another thing to do if you don't want to actually dig into the pricing, as give an example, using Julie's example, is it might be more impressive if you say that the ZS putting out the difference in percentage versus dollar amount. So say that the Zillow estimate was actually 30% less than what the house actually sold for, and for a lot of
sold for 30% more than what Zillow said.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, so that's going to have more of an impact than anyway. So keep your mind open to what people are already going to be talking about. It's always fun to.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, point being that nothing grabs a homeowner's attention like showing them how online valuations can be wildly inaccurate. A lot of them have never had that thought, so this proves that. And highlighting that difference, as Tim said, between an algorithm-based estimate and a real sale price done by you using your real CMA makes a pretty compelling case for your expertise. So add a short but powerful client testimonial, or even for even more impact. And don't forget to write. Remember your call to action. Ask me how I did it. Plus either your mobile number or, better yet, 1-800-HOME hotline number. We've talked about 800-HOME hotline a lot. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not.
Well, I mean, 800-HOME hotline is, if you and I are to get back into selling real estate, there's three things that we deploy immediately. Number one would be a very drilled down center of influence and past client plan, especially in the community that we live in now. We'd be doing events. We'd schedule it out. We'd use, frankly, the plans that were already created that are in Premier Coaching. Number two is we definitely go after expired listings. And number three, we'd be using 800-HOME hotline extensively. And if you guys don't know what it is, it's basically the world's least expensive, most effective way of generating buyer and seller leads. Just go to 1-800-HOMEhotline.com and check out the website. It's, I think, $35 a month, and you get you're an exclusive 1-800 number. It could be it doesn't have to be 1-800. It could be 888 or whatever. But people can call 24/7. Calling is the key. And so you want to put the sign writers on, obviously, your signs and everywhere else and try to direct people to call. The reason we want them calling opposed to emailing is because then you'll have, obviously, their phone number that they called from. Well, maybe not so obvious. You didn't know that, did you? Anytime you call a phone number where the seller is paying the phone for the call, a toll-free number, let's say, they capture your phone number. So when someone would call your 800-HOME hotline number and they're asking about one of your listings for sale, and they show you how to do this on 1-800-HOMEhotline.com, is that you simply call back. And I would really, suggest a vast majority of you do this calling back yourself so you can have that experience. But you call back and say, hey, this is Tim Harris, ring, 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 ring. And then the person says hello. And remember, they just hung up after listening to the recording for the house that, you have listed. And this could be, obviously, you could also do this on your postcards too, or any direct mail pieces. But you call them back and say, hey, this is Tim Harris with eXp Realty. As a courtesy, when folks call our 800 number, we like to give them a quick call back, see if they have any questions about the home they called about. And then what you'll always hear, because remember, you're calling them back basically the second they hung up, is they're not going to believe it's a real person. They're going to think it's a bot or somebody, VA or whatever. But when they realize it's actually you, right there, right in that very moment, you've crossed the line in their minds of being somebody truly unique in the real estate business. Because you're calling all the leads back urgently. And they're going to say, well, I was calling about that house on 123 Elm Street. And you're going to say, terrific, that house is, we're getting a lot of calls on that one. Let me check to see what the current price on that house is. And then you say this, and this is all in the scripts that 1-800-HOMEhotline.com gives you. You say this, that's a terrific house. Everyone's calling on that one. Let me check to make sure it's still available, and let me find out the current asking price and see if there's any other new houses that are similar that you might be interested in. Oh, by the way, which house in the neighborhood are you thinking about selling? Now, you want to ask the question right at the top of the conversation, because they're going to give you the truthful answer, unlike what most scripts and essentially trainers will tell you to do, is do this back and forth fake friending of them, and maybe 10 minutes into the call, then maybe slip into the conversation whether they have a house to sell. That is not the way you generate listing leads from buyer leads. That's not the way you actually build a real estate business. So when you call them back, and you should call all of them back, like I said, do it yourself. Don't just throw them into some sort of digital follow-up system. Call them back, use our pre-qualification script, and you'll discover droves of folks that appear in your life as buyers, but they're actually sellers.
Yes, and there's so much more to 1-800-HOME hotline, but that is the most obvious way to use it and attach it to any of the postcards that we're talking about today. All right, so number 2 is one of my favorite because we did this and it absolutely works, the expired listing letter. Here's the headline. Sometimes even the best homes don't sell the first time, but not for the reasons you may think. For a free confidential consultation, call or text me today. Remember that homeowners with expired listings are often frustrated. Nobody ever thinks that their house is going to expire. This letter taps into their pain points, and it reassures them that there still is a way forward. It presents a solution. That solution is your strategy for getting results.
Let me edit that script or give you an alternative to it. Sometimes even the best homes don't sell, and probably not for the reason you've been told. Now, I like that script better because it's way more aggressive, and it's also laying into what the seller is most annoyed with, that the previous listing agent had probably just been harping on them about price. And if you then are giving the seller an opportunity to maybe have a conversation with a new listing agent who they're not just, you're not just going to talk exclusively about the house being overpriced, you might discover that you're going to get a whole bunch of more opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have. And again, this especially works in the upper end price ranges. Oh, and it is worth noting, and you'll learn more about this when you join Premier Coaching, that yes, price is a reason why houses don't sell and they expire, but it's rarely the number one reason. And oftentimes when you list or relist an expired listing, what you quickly discover is the house didn't have a price issue. It may have had a crappy listing agent issue. It may have had bad pictures or a bad description, or really oftentimes it's just because it's no longer showing up as a new listing, and the buyer's agents and the buyers were passing it by, and it's just you're looking for the newest listings. There's so many things about expired listings, especially this time of year, that make them absolute gold. And again, price is not always the reason the property didn't sell. It's price, condition, and location, okay? And if the location is good and the condition is good enough and the price is good enough, the property should have sold. And it goes back to essentially it being, essentially expired, because it's like expired milk. You walk to the cooler, at Costco or whatever, and you're going to what? You're looking for the one with the best price, of course, but you're also looking for the one that has the best expiration date, the one that's going to be able to sit in your counter in your kitchen for the longest period of time without spoiling. Buyers and buyers agents think the same way. So often, just by giving it a new MLS number, the house sells.
This is so true. One of my elite coaching clients just took a listing, as a matter of fact, not too far from us in Puerto Rico. And I asked, she said, it's a fantastic house. And I asked her, well, why do you think it didn't sell? She said, because it was listed by an out-of-town broker who insisted on being at every showing and made it really difficult to even see it.
Yep. That happens a lot.
She'll probably get the price they wanted too.
Again, you have a lot. Normally, we could talk about expires forever because truthfully, it's like our favorite topic. But a lot of sellers, when they're going to list their homes, will list with an agent that they know, a center of influence past client type agent, right? That's what most people will do. They'll list with an agent they know, oftentimes without even really knowing what that agent's sales history is. In other words, they just know them enough that they feel comfortable listing the house with them. So that's what they ended up doing. Now, that was your number one competitor. And when that number one competitor didn't get that house sold, your number one competitor is off the field. And that listing or that seller is going to be looking for a new listing agent. And if you are then using our pre-listing pack and you're calling them, you're door knocking to them, and you're delivering the pre-listing pack, and you're pre-qualifying them, you're following our 7-step listing process, what you're going to discover is they're not just going to want to list with you. They're going to be way more
coachable.
Yes, with regards to condition and with regards to price.
Well, because meanwhile, while they sat on the market and expired, which shocked them because they thought it would sell right away, they've gotten more motivated.
Well, exactly.
They'll do things for the new agent that they never do from the previous agent.
Yeah,
okay.
And so listen, with regards to Premier Coaching, if you guys are not in Premier Coaching yet, I don't know what the heck you're waiting for. We couldn't have made it any easier for you to say yes, yes, yes. Just go to premiercoaching.com or scroll below and click the link to join Premier Coaching. You can get immediate access to all of Premier Coaching for free for the first 30 days. And yes, that does include a semi-private coaching call with one of our Harris certified coaches every workday. And depending on how you join, you do also have full access to get to ethical real estate professional, which is our new elite designation that will ultimately differentiate you in the marketplace. More information about all this coming soon, but for now, your homework assignment from today's show and every day's show is to join Premier Coaching. Do not delay. There's literally zero risk. There's no long-term contracts. If it's not a good fit for you, you can cancel, and you have immediate access to the first full level Premier Coaching just by going to premiercoaching.com. Or like I said, if you're listening on iTunes, YouTube, we're on every platform that there is, Spotify. Just scroll down below and click the link to join.
All right, postcard number 3, the Just Sold Story Mailer. Now, this makes a Just Sold card so much better and more interesting. Here's the headline. This card isn't just to tell you there was a sale that happened, it's to tell you how we did it. After 12 showings, 1 open house where 17 people came through, 2 counteroffers and a bidding war, we successfully closed for more than the asking price. So that's the story of how it actually sold. Now, that can be even more powerful if it comes from the actual seller client, more like a testimonial story. But instead of just announcing another sale, everybody gets just listed, just sold cards. This mailer tells a compelling story demonstrating your skill, your persistence, showing potential sellers that you're the agent who will navigate challenges and get the job done.
Well, I love that one, especially with the details. And I'm going to give you guys a little, again, advanced coaching on this one. Use your good friend ChatGPT and write on postcards something that is going to be compelling. Tell it to write give it the bullet points of what you're trying to express, and then tell it to write something that's funny, that's whimsical, that's fun to read, and things like that. Or you could even ask it to write it in the form of a poem. I cannot believe how good of a job ChatGPT does at poems. It's insane. But use it for that, and then your actual cards will have a different style to them. And you'll be surprised. I know it's a bit of a gimmick, but it still does work. When you're doing direct mail, just because your postcards were written in such a way that entertains somebody, you're actually going to get a call out for the potential listing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And I'll give you this as well. When you're writing the descriptions in the MLS for your listings, use ChatGPT to do the same thing. I can tell you for sure that because my lovely wife, Julie, would take extra time on a lot of our listings, some of them, they were didn't merit this level of attention, but some of the more expensive, I would say lofty type houses, or not even lofty in the literal sense, but expensive or more specific, let's say, or things like that, too custom. You guys getting what I'm saying here? But she'd write it, and a lot of them were expireds, and she'd write these great descriptions. And this was obviously before ChatGPT, and we would get not just buyers that were wanting to see it because they read the description, but also we would get future listings because the sellers were appreciative of the fact that we put that much extra effort in. That's all it takes to be real specialized in this marketplace. If you really want to brand yourself, use these tiny little short codes that Julie and I are giving you, and you'll ultimately have carved yourself out a special place in their minds as someone that puts in the extra work. It's not just about, it's about consistency for sure, but it's also about the quality of what you're producing. And now with ChatGPT, you have essentially a PhD level copywriter that's there at your service 24/7 for free.
I know, it's so awesome.
It
We
is.
would have had so much fun with that, especially for home brochures and postcards like we're talking about today. So postcard number 4, the free comparable market analysis offer, free CMA offer. And again, this one really kills it, works great. Here's a headline, even if you're not planning to sell just yet, you should know your home's value. Local home prices have increased by X%. Everywhere in the country has had an increase. There might be like 3 or 4 zip codes that had a slight decrease.
In the last 5 years, real estate's
You
appreciated.
can use that, yes.
In the last 5 years, real estate's appreciated by 61%.
There you go.
6-1.
And that's nationwide, right?
That's nationwide.
Yeah.
Your market's probably more.
Yes. Okay, so do your research and use your own percent. But again, even if you're not planning to sell just yet, you should know your home's value. Local home prices have increased by X% either since last year, in the past 3 years, in the past 5 years. Adjust accordingly. Ready for an updated valuation? Call or text me today for a free confidential consultation about what your home is worth in today's market. Again, a simple but effective mailer that keeps you top of mind. It's something of value, free CMA, and a call to action.
When you get the lead, whether it's you're using 800 home hotline, you're asking them to call you, you need to call them back. You could send them to a short form, do a Google form or whatever. Tell them to whatever. You're going to send them a form where they're going to put in their information. You need to call all of them back. So Julie and I, what was it called? House Values. This was back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So this was before Zillow, but there was this company that came out called housevalues.com. It was started in Seattle. And Julie and I did some coaching and training for them. And they had a really, their system worked really well when it came out. Then everyone copied them. But the gist of it was they'd run these really well done, short, like 30-second, sometimes 15-second TV ads back when there was TV. You guys remember that? And they would, kill particular markets and offering what? CMAs. And then they would, they'd sell those leads to agents. And these were listing leads. And so they had a script that wasn't very good, frankly. And so what Julie and I taught when we were coaching for them is because they wanted the agent to call back to be like overtly house values branded. And they were hoping the agents were essentially going to carry the water for them to build their house values brand in the marketplace. Whereas Julie and I, selling real estate and being real estate coaches, knew that ultimately what was best for the agent was for the agent to take the listing. So what we do is we coach the agents, and we're telling you this now, to call every single lead back and say, the gist of it was, hey, this is Tim Harris with eXp Realty, and I'm your local house values rep. I'm just calling back to confirm some of the information that you gave me. And then I'd go right into the form they filled out. All right, so this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you updated the this, and that, and the other. And then I'd ask that question. By the way, how soon do you hope to have this house for sale? Or ideally, how soon do you want to have the home sold? And then what you discover is for every 10 house value leads, there might be one that's an actual hot seller lead. But had I followed their script and their system, I just would have been providing the free CMA and putting them in a drip campaign, hoping that seller would have called me back out of guilt or obligation because I gave them that damn CMA.
Too much work, not enough results.
Exactly. So by asking that direct question, then obviously we're able to convert a lot of those leads. And I'm strongly encouraging you guys to do the same damn thing when you're calling them back. Always call them back. The less time between when the lead surfaces in your life and when you call them back, the better. You're going to leave a lasting impression on them that you're urgent, that you're furiously fast with your lead follow-up. You're not sitting around and doing what everyone else does and puts them in a drip campaign. That's going to win the game for you 9 times out of 10, just that one activity.
100%, especially on the free CMA offer, because that does get the phone to ring. And I remember, because you're making me remember the house values thing. I remember also how you go about the CMA and how you handle that appointment and that conversation is different based on the answer to the question that you just reminded them to ask. I remember we used to ask, many times people are just curious about their price. Sometimes people are thinking about refinancing and other people are thinking about selling. Which category do you fall into? And if they say, I'm thinking about selling, well, probably you're going to take it to the next level, send your pre-listing package, set a listing appointment up, and not just send them a CMA for free.
Well, so I wouldn't give them 3 choices, Julie. No, I think it's a mistake. What I would do is I would just ask the exact question the way I had asked, because when you give somebody an option, chances are...
So give that to them again.
So it's what we always say, guys. When you're calling someone back, a buyer calls, and they're interested in 123 Elm Street, you call them back right away. You answer some very preliminary questions, and you say, by the way, which house in the neighborhood are you thinking about selling? Or by the way, ideally, how soon would would you like your home sold? Now they're going to say, oh, I was just wanting a CMA. And you're going to say, okay, no problem. And just get right back to it and confirm the rest of the information, do the CMA and send it off. And then you're going to start following up with them by phone. You can put them in a drip campaign, but don't expect anything to ever come from from you dripping on them. The bottom line is call them expecting them to say, yes, I have a house to sell. And don't just hope and pray that your fancy dripping campaign is going to make it so that they raise their hand eventually and want to do business with you. It does not work that way.
Yes.
Oh, and I want to say something else too.
Go ahead.
Consumers don't know what the hell a CMA is.
Yeah, don't say CMA.
Don't say CMA. Again, experiment with it. Julie and I are in Puerto Rico, but we do still sound like we're from Texas. But we're not actually from Texas. We're from Ohio. But along the way, we've picked up all these little colloquialisms, and our vernacular is resembling all the different places we've lived. We've lived in 1, 2, 5 places.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least. And so you need to be tuned in to your local parlance of your local,
You might call it a pricing analysis or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Well, okay, and I'll give you an advanced player tip.
Yep.
Okay, if you're in a market where property taxes are reassessed every single year, and Julie and I did this, and it was freaking gold for us, and I'm giving this to you guys as well. And this is when we were living in the New Albany Country Club area, and the average sale price was like 1.2 or 1.3. And Ohio loved to charge big crap tons of property taxes. Mm-hmm. Texas is worse, 2.5% or something obscene like that, which is insane. So what you want to do is you want to mail out postcards that are offering, or something that's offering a free CMA, or you're going to do a property tax assessment for the sake of contesting your property taxes. And so what we do is we had a direct mail piece. We'd mail it out. We always got listings from this. And then we would offer to give them the form that they need to fill out to contest their property taxes. We downloaded it off the auditor's website. And we would offer to do them a CMA, create a CMA for them, which, by the way, the form required. So when the homeowner is submitting their request for a reappraisal of their taxes for the sake of getting a lower assessment, the form actually says you have to include some kind of formalized CMA from a broker. So we are doing all that for them. And what we discovered 9 times out of 10 is we were picking off the folks that were thinking about selling sometimes a year or 18 months into the future, but we'd already entered into their lives with having this really, strong...
Something of value.
Something of huge value, because they don't want their property taxes showing up too high when they put the house for sale, because that will run off potential buyers.
Right. And if they're going to hang on to it for a couple more years, maybe get their taxes down a little bit. You can ask your AI how to handle fighting property taxes in your zip code in your town.
And I'm going to say this again. Go to ChatGPT. Tell it that you want to write a postcard offering to essentially do what it is that we just said. If you don't want to do postcards, we've talked about this before, and you do have a local community newspaper that is delivered to people's doors. I know there's not very many of these that still exist anymore. Don't do an ad in the paper because it's too damn expensive. But do an insert into the paper of like an 8.5 by 11, something that you got to choose an obnoxiously bright color or people won't see it. And do maybe what we just talked about on the fluorescent 8.5 by 11, insert. What? Did I say something wrong?
I tell them what an insert, some of them don't know. It's just paper. When they're packaging up the newspapers, they shoot that paper into the middle of the newspaper.
Actually,
or on the outside is even better.
The kid does it.
Yeah.
So you could tell Julie never delivered newspapers. As a kid, I did. So let me give you a little how it actually works.
Okay.
So when they drop off the newspapers, and it was horrible on Sunday, anyone who was Generation X that used to deliver the paper will know what I'm talking about. So this is back when the coupons were the thing. So the newspapers were already huge, and so they would include stacks of the newspapers, stacks of the inserts, and sometimes the inserts were 3 piles, stacks as deep as the newspaper. And before you delivered the Sunday paper, you had to take inserts from each of the 3 stacks and shove them into the damn thing, and into the main newspaper. And these main newspapers with all the inserts, I bet you they weighed on average of probably a ½ pound each, maybe even more. And then you had to put them in your damn bag, which ended up weighing as half the weight you did. And you had to constantly go back and forth to your stack of newspapers. And so what eventually happened was there were so many ads that I got to know some of the other neighboring newspaper boys. And my brother and I would always, do the inserts. We are Boy Scouts after all, literally.
Made you
but
stronger.
we found out all of our competing paper boys in the other adjacent neighborhoods, they were taking those damn coupons and inserts and throwing them into
the trash.
Not the trash, but the dump,
recycler,
the things in the ground where all the water goes.
Oh, the gutters.
The gutters. And so they wouldn't deliver any of them. And but anyway, so I'm just sharing all this with you. If you're in a neighborhood where there's still a local newspaper, the one that reports the local football teams and the local this and the other things, right? That is going to be gold. And don't do an ad, do an insert.
Do they let you choose what day?
Yeah, they let you choose what day. But the amazing part is it's super cheap.
Yeah, it is super cheap. We're just talking about regular copy paper that happens to be a bright color.
Well, let's get some. I mean, the cold medicine is still rocking out in me right now. So where they're going to try to margin you is on the printing. So they're going to say, well, we'll do the printing ourselves. You can go to an online. There's so many great sources. If you're in a big metro area, there's going to be a company called Paper Plus where you can go there and you can buy paper in bulk from the same sources that the big printers use. And so go buy your fluorescent ugly paper in bulk, and then you can then have it printed, and you can probably buy the paper and have it printed for less than 3 cents, and they'll usually insert it for, I bet you your all-in price will be less than 5 cents per house.
Super cheap.
Right. Whereas if you do a postcard nowadays, your postcard cost, even with a bulk carrier sorted stamp, as it were, is going to cost 5, 6, maybe 7 times that amount.
Yeah, so any of these postcards we're talking about, Tim's right, you can turn those into an insert instead and save some money. Okay, so our next postcard. I love this because so many of our coaching clients have had great results from this. We call this the wanted ad, wanted flyer, wanted insert. Wanted your home for my super motivated, highly qualified buyer who only wants this neighborhood. Here's the headline. I'm working with a highly qualified and motivated buyer client or buyer clients or buyer family. Modify as you need. They're relocating to Atlanta from Charlotte and only want this neighborhood. It's more powerful if you name the neighborhood. If you're considering selling this month or even this year, call me today because they may be a perfect match for your home. This is a direct personal approach. It's very specific to the neighborhood. It's got urgency. It's got intrigue. It makes the homeowners wonder and be curious. Maybe now's the time to sell. Boy, if we could sell and it wouldn't have we wouldn't have to show it 50 times. Maybe I should call this agent and see if they really are a match. Okay. So and we used to do this as well. Even those who were not thinking of selling just yet are really tempted to respond. I think, do you remember the doctor's house that we got in New Albany from this wanted? When we had
Joel.
Relocating executives, and that turned into like 5 transactions.
Yeah, well, that's the reason I remember it, is because it was an expired listing for 1.1 or 1.2 million, and we had buyers that were relocating that were working with GE, if you remember correctly. See, when you remember the big ones, I mean, we've done thousands of deals.
Awesome.
We've done thousands of deals, but the ones that stick out are the ones where, are like what Julie's describing. And so the multiple transactions that came from that is selling it ourselves, him buying something, all the other, listings that we ended up taking as a result, things like that. But that in itself, that one little idea, if you've got some buyers that are looking at a particular area. Now, if you really want to enhance that, here's what you do. Do the wanted flyer, as Julie just described, and we have examples and templates on Premier Coaching, and go door knock that particular neighborhood looking for a house for your prospective buyers. That is lightning in a bottle when you do these things in conjunction with each other. Now, if you're working in a particular market, and let's say you've done your homework, you know that it's not oversaturated, you know that there's plenty of turnover, so this is a primed area for direct mail. Do the direct mail and do the door knocking and go after the expireds and do the social, not media, but do the social, networking, actual, person-to-person networking in that community. Those combination of things will get you momentum faster than you can possibly imagine. Even as a brand new agent, if you're out there getting to know folks and you're essentially saturating that particular market with your particular brand of urgency and furiously fast lead follow-up, the sellers are at least going to give you a bite of the apple. You're going to get an opportunity to go on a listing appointment. But here's the problem that you guys are going to create for yourselves. You're going to create listing leads, but you have no clue what to do on the listing appointment. You know that's true. You don't know how to pre-qualify. You don't have a pre-listing pack. You don't have a listing presentation. You don't know how to close. You're going to get these great listing leads from what Julie and I are describing to you, but you're not going to take the listings, and you're going to just frustrate yourself, and you're going to, fail. I mean, that's in essence what happens to a lot of agents is they might get appointments, but they don't know how to take the listings. They're not competitive. And one of the biggest, I think most critical aspects of our Premier Coaching Program is we teach you how to dominate the listing game. We give you our 7-step listing process, which does include a pre-listing pack. We show you and tell you exactly what to say on listing appointments. And we want you to have the mindset you're going to win 100% of the time. Because what you'll discover is a listing appointment, when you do it the way we teach you to do it, will last no more than 15 to 20 minutes total. And the sellers, because you've delivered the pre-listing pack and you've delivered the information as we prescribe for you to receive, are going to be very appreciative. And you'll understand more why when you join Premier Coaching. But if you want the ultimate way to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, our listing process that we teach you is part of Ethical Real Estate Professional and Premier Coaching is going to be the unfair advantage that all of you must have in your marketplace, especially this time of year. So just go to premiercoaching.com or just click the link below and you can join Premier Coaching right now for free.
All right, last but not least, and again, we did this and it works. This is the card that I remember that the sellers kept the most. They would have stacks and stacks of them in their junk drawer. And then we'd finally get called out and they say, yeah, we've been following the market for all these months. It's called the local market report, or the industry term is the absorption rate or absorption rate study. That's a complicated term for a local market report. So your headline might be something like this. In the last 30 days, 23 homes sold, 6 went under contract, and 4 new listings hit the market. What does this mean for your home's value? Call me today for a free confidential consultation. Now, that's the simplified version. There are many different versions of this. The more analytical version is a chart that says what's hot and what's not, and it'll break it down into price ranges. Between 0 and 250,000, there were 3 sales. 250 to 500, there were 10 sales. 500 to 750, and so on and so forth. And then in that chart, it might also say the average days on the market.
We're not explaining what absorption means. So absorption is a very powerful thing to understand because essentially, let's say, I've got to remember how to explain this succinctly because there's a long way and there's a short way. Okay,
it is complex.
It is. Well, it's not. It's complex if you overthink it. So the gist of it is when you're talking with a seller. Again, this is all in Premier Coaching, and guys, forgive me. I'm still on cold medicine. I got some sort of plague I caught from our 11-year-old daughter. In any event, so when you're showing sellers how long it's going to take for them to sell their homes, I'm going to probably do a hybrid version of the long and the short version to try to deliver you guys the most value from listening to us today. So you're going to give the seller 3 options as to where to price their house. They can price the house where this is when you're meeting with them, when you're following our 7 steps listing process. So Mr. Seller, you have 3 options. And the first option is going to be pricing it at, let's say it's a $500,000 value house, but if you price it at $435,000, well, the house is going to sell. This is what your net's going to be. So if you want to sell the house right away, maybe not even $435,000, maybe you can price it at $475,000, right? But you price it here. This is what your net's going to be. Realistically, and I'll show you in a second when I show you the absorption of Mr. Seller, the house will sell in approximately 8 days. Okay, so now we can go to the other extreme. And the house is, arguably the market is telling us, don't say my CMA, don't use personal pronouns. Pronouns wars are over. Okay, so what you want to do instead is you want to say the CMA or the market is telling us and show them what essentially the more, I would say, what would be the nice way of saying it?
Advantageous?
No, the upper end price.
Aspirational price?
The aspirational price. There you go. Thank you. So the aspirational price, Mr. Seller, of $525,000, which I've also listed here. Remember, guys, the market's telling us it's worth $500,000, but the aspirational price of $525,000, this will get us this net. But based on what I'm about to show you as far as the absorption, it's going to take 60, 90 days to sell, 120 days to sell, and we might have to do a price adjustment. So it might actually end up selling for $10,000 less, maybe all the way down to $500,000. But if you've got the time, and you really want to explore what the outer reaches of the value of the home is, let's go ahead and let's price it aspirationally and let's see what the market delivers us. And this right here in the middle, Mr. Seller, this is what the market is telling us the house is worth based on recent sales. So now what you're going to do is you're going to pull out for them something from the MLS. I literally am visualizing myself doing this. I've done it thousands of times.
Yep.
But you're going to show them a list of all the homes that are competing with theirs. And it's not just going to be the same neighborhood. Sometimes it's going to be competing neighborhoods. It might even be new construction. You got to know your market. And you're going to show them a list of all the homes that have sold in the last 90 days. If they're having enough sales in the last 90 days, you're going to have to go back further. And then what you're going to do is you're going to break, and there have to be very relatively, good comps. Square footage, bedroom, bath, year built, all that. And then what you're going to see, dear agent, is you're going to see that the ones that sell the fastest, generally speaking, are the ones that are priced closest to market or a little bit under market. And you're going to be able to show this to them in the printout from the MLS. So remember, we said the market value of the house was $500,000. And then we're going to be able to show them, let's say there's 30 houses that have sold in the last 6 months. And it's bizarre how it works out like this. It just does. It's the first 10 are going to be priced at $500,000 or a little less than $500,000. But what you're also going to see is the days on the market's going to be less, right? So if the seller is telling you that they want to have the house, they're okay with taking 60 to 90 days to sell, let's say, or, whatever your market takes to sell an average house in this market, it might be like 48 days, whatever. You're going to show them, well, let's price it at $499,000. And this is what the market is telling us. This is how long it should take to sell. And then what you're going to show is you can show them that the more aspirationally priced, don't say expensive or overpriced, is they then took longer to sell, or a lot of them expired. So what you could do is you can have the ones that expired when you're presenting this to them, and you can actually circle it to them. So the ones that are in that third price category, where they really weren't priced to the market or to meet the buyer's expectations, they either didn't sell or they ended up selling for market price or even a little bit less because they sat on the market that much longer. But if you want to really go for the stars, I'm all for it. I believe in your house. You don't make it so it's you against the seller. It's you and the seller against the market. I believe in your house. You've got a fantastic property. And if that's what we want to try, I'm all for it. I'll do everything I can. Okay, we'll price it at $525. But if you want to have a reasonable, now if you want to sell it right away, let's say you have to get at, whatever is causing you to want to sell it right away, you can see by looking at the absorption that when we price it at like $499 or $489 or $479, we can see those houses sell in for the shortest period of time, and usually for asking price, if not a little bit over asking price. So, Mr. Seller, it's up to you. What's your time frame, right? Now, remember, you already pre-qualified that seller before getting to the seller's house, so you know what their time frame is. You know how much breathing room they have before the house has to close. So you could say, Mr. Seller, based on what you told me prior to coming out here, you want to have the house sold in the next 60 to 90 days so that you can meet the closing date of the house that you guys are building, right? Right. Okay, has that changed? No. Okay, so that means that we should be pricing it right in here. Now, why do you go about doing it that way? Now, let's say, let me just go back. Let's say the seller is wanting to price it at $525, and that's it. They're just basically dug in. Do not argue with the seller. If you do, you're being dumb. Take the listing, but you need to be honest with them. Mr. Seller, I appreciate the fact that you feel the house is worth $525, despite the fact that the market is telling us a different number. But you know what? Now that I've seen the property, I believe in the property. I understand why you think it's worth that. And you know what? The market does change. There could be all of a sudden a big sell-off, and then easily the house could be worth more. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and price it at $525.9. But let's agree right now that after 2 weeks or 10 showings, whichever comes first, if we don't have a written verified offer on the property, that we're going to reposition the house in the market so that correctly reflects the market's expectations. Don't say lower the price. Saying lower the price will get your ass kicked out of their house. So we're going to reposition the house in the market so that it correctly reflects the market's expectations. And here's what they're going to say. Okay, that's fine. Listed at $525. Perfect. Listed at $525. And then right on the listing contract, you might want to do an adjustment for them right then and there, that on this day, which is 2 weeks or 10 showings, give yourself a little bit of time to do the pre-marketing, get the sign in the yard, because the seller's definitely going to be keeping track. You could say 2 weeks or 10 showings from the day it goes active in the MLS, whatever. If we don't have a written verified offer in the house, that will reposition the house to $499. And just write it on there, because then you're letting the seller win. Okay, you're taking the listing. Why do you want to do that strategy opposed to arguing with the seller? Because if you argue with the seller and you try to make the seller wrong, you're not going to get the listing, because all it's going to take is because remember, what causes the seller to want to overprice and think their house is worth more than all the others? Ego, right? That's why. Ego, their tile job that they did in the bathroom and none of the tile are straight, that's something they take a lot of pride in. So if you tell them their house is worth less than what they think it's worth, all it's going to take is some other agent to go in there and blow smoke up the sellers, you know what, and then they're going to end up overpricing it, but they're going to get the listing, and they're going to work the seller down over time and hypothetically get the price repositioned so they can, get the sale. But if you take this, you can take an overpriced listing ethically by letting the seller know and using the script I just gave you, and then having a plan to reposition the house in the market after it's been for sale for a while. And it's called a win-win. The seller's happy. The seller's appreciative of the fact that you're, trying to work extra hard. Now, but reality is that if most of the sellers you're going to be meeting with, especially if you follow our system, aren't going to want to have, especially after you show the absorption, that overpricing could result in months on the market and maybe an expired listing and a lot of aggravation from extra showings, they're not going to want to overprice. But you got to leave it to them after you give the information to make up their minds. Because again, you don't know the emotions that are going on in these sellers' minds and their hearts. So back off, give them the facts, let them make their decisions, create a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And then you guys will discover quickly that you now have a secret sauce that other potential listing agents don't have. And that, by the way, is just a very minor overview of the drill down that we give you in Premier Coaching.
That's right. To your point, after you generate the lead, make sure you actually take the listing. That's where you are demonstrating how to use the absorption rate study to get them to price it correctly. You can think of absorption as how quickly the market absorbs a certain type of price in a certain type of price range. So final thoughts on our postcards today. The key to successful direct mail. And again, you can translate postcard into flyer, insert, etc. It's not just sending them out. It's sending the right message, something compelling, something of value in a way that actually resonates with the person to get them to call you back. So try to use all of these, not just one or two of them, and then wait and see what happens, right? Every single person listening can use every single one of these examples that we talked about today. And if you're confused, if you need help, if you need support, which of course, all of you need the support that we can give you in Premier Coaching from our Harris certified coaches. You know what to do. Go ahead and sign up for Premier Coaching for free today.
I just had a closing thought.
Yes.
So if you're in a community where you're thinking about doing direct mail, don't assume that your neighborhood is the right neighborhood to do direct mail in, though it might be the perfect neighborhood. Whatever neighborhood you're considering, again, do the research, find out what your competition is. You might want to set up ask some of the neighbors that you might know in that other neighborhood to start for the next 60 to 90 days collecting all real estate stuff that they get in the mail and just putting it in a bag so you can see what's actually being mailed to folks. Yep. And then I also want you to secret shop all your competitors. So if they're direct mailing something and they're trying to squeeze the leads to a website, go to the website, see what the user experience is. If they're trying to squeeze them to a phone call, call and find out what the user experience is. And what you're going to find 99% of the time, the user experience is garbage. In other words, it's going to go to a voicemail. It's going to go to an opt-in form. It's going to go to a drip campaign. Nobody's doing the actual calls. So if you guys follow through with just 10% of what we just said, it's going to make direct mail work. Does this replace direct contact, proactive lead generation? No. Does it enhance it? Yes. Does this enhance online marketing, social media, and all those types of things? Absolutely it does. And in many markets, because most agents have run to social media and have never learned how to do direct mail is wide open in a lot of the most expensive markets in the country. Again, because a lot of agents are thinking they just need to do a bunch of TikTok videos. Oh, how did that work out? All right, so guys, keep all these things in mind as you decide whether you're going to do direct mail. Your homework from this show and every show is to definitely join Premier Coaching. Go to premiercoaching.com. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.